Thank you very much for staying. Welcome back to Business Live. Now, very first story, business confidence improved marginally in the third quarter of this year. That's according to the latest Business Barometer report by the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI. The AGI is attributing the slight increase in confidence to a stable economy. Executive Secretary of the association, Seth Chuma Kwabwa, however, tells Joy Business issues such as the high cost of electricity and water still need to be addressed.
Well, the post-challenge with electricity is still a major issue. Last year, what we experienced was inadequate supply, unreliable, irregular, and inconsistent supply of energy. And businesses complained a lot. There's no doubt about it. Consistently, it was featuring our business barometer as one of the key constraints. So we're happy that this year we've seen some stability. It cushions them a little bit. But then the stability has also brought in its wake another kind of challenge, which is the cost. And today, from the Business Barometer report, electricity cost still remains the highest. It was so in the second quarter, it is so in the third quarter. What it means is that the issue of electricity is critical to business development, critical to industrial development, critical to development of manufacturing. And there are different aspects to it. One aspect is the reliability, regularity of supply. The other aspect is the cost. We've managed to handle the regularity of supply, but then the cost we haven't. So it is still featuring as a major issue. We need to have the two happening at the same time to become very competitive. It's not enough to have regular supply, which you cannot use and become competitive. Mind you, the cost of energy is part of your cost of production and therefore impacts on competitiveness. So you need to have the two working in tandem so that you can say, yes, I'm competitive with all these fronts. Then my competitiveness is not just limited to Ghana. I can also go out there, sell my products out there and become very competitive in the other markets as well.
Meanwhile, the AGI, in collaboration with the International Trade Center, has launched the first ever SME Competitiveness Report. The report identified difficulties in accessing credit and the inability of SMEs to produce high value-added products as some of the key factors making them uncompetitive. Senior officer at the International Trade Center, Heyman Manson, has been shedding more light.
The highest scoring areas are related to the firm, the SME's capability internally to produce and to understand how to manage their business. Having said that, there is a lot of effort that is still required in the way these companies are managing and measuring efficiency, the way these companies are understanding how to adapt in order to compete, how to develop new products, how to innovate. Yeah, essentially this is the area where a lot of effort is required at the company level. This comes together with market incentives. What is the incentive for these companies, and are these companies properly connected to market information so that then it makes sense for them to innovate, for them to adapt. Now, on the global level, the area where Ghana is not scoring so well is related to the access to finance. And this has been voiced here today by most of the private sector. This does not mean that access to finance mechanisms and instruments are not there. They are actually there. It simply means that companies are finding it hard to access and benefit from those mechanisms. And that is hindering competitiveness from the company point of view.
And away from that, the Council for Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEG, is demanding an outright rejection of the proposed implementation of the 550 ppm by the NPA following the outcome of a report by European agency Public Eye in conjunction with the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. At a press conference in Accra, the Council raised concerns about the way the NPA is currently going about the reduction in the sulfur levels in fuels imported into the country. Vice Chairperson of the Council of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers is also the General Secretary of the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, Solomon Kote.
it has come to light that we are importing a lot of contaminated fuel into the country, especially in the area of diesel. Now, in diesel, we have some element of sulfur, and the sulfur element in our diesel in Ghana, the ppm is so high. It's so high to the point that it destroys the vehicles. Its emission to society is not the best for human health, and to the unsuspecting Ghanaian public, we buy these things not knowing the content. So this press conference is also to draw the MPA's attention that if you are the sole authority to regulate the OMCs and the BDCs, and these are the kind of fuel they are importing into the country, okay, what are you doing about it? We note again that they go around and they try to test check the fuel that they have in their tanks, okay, underground. When they test and it is contaminated, it's not matching the 10 ppm, all they do is to fine you 10,500 Ghana cedis per tank underground. So if you have 3 tanks, then you are going to pay over 31,500 Ghana cedis. We are asking, is that the best thing to do? Because if the fuel over in that particular fuel station is contaminated, then why not ask them to go for further refine and then get the toxic out of it, or you should go and dump them somewhere so that the harmful effect of it doesn't come on our vehicles, our machines, our factories, and then to the human element of it. This is not being done. This is what we are questioning, because at least we have cited the pharmacy example that if you are selling an expired drugs and then the Food and Drugs Board happen to come in there, they ask you take them out, okay, and then they are destroyed. Why this one you only find and you still allow it to be there? They've taken some steps, but those steps that I've taken are not in the direction of the demands that we are putting across, because we expect to ensure that if in Europe, in the Asia, in Americas, they have stopped using, fuel carrying ppm of 500 plus 10 years ago, then we are saying we rather want to start 500 ppm from January. We think this is not acceptable.
We are coming from the high side.
We are coming from the high side. Do we produce them here? Where we are buying it from? Why wouldn't we buy? That is why in this country today, if you visit any Shell filling station, they will tell you we have the VPAR, okay? And the VPAR content is far richer quality, okay, which is on lead, and then the lead fuel carry these things, and these are not helpful to us.
So in brief, what exactly do you want to be done? Because if at least taking a step.
Yes, in taking the step, we are not in agreement or looking at the 500 ppm that they want to use as a benchmark. We are also saying that because the various legislative instruments that are there, we are asking for their enforceability by if.
Now, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources is confident a consolidated lands administration law, when passed, will address most of the problems associated with land acquisition, especially for businesses. This comes as the committee working on the document incorporates all stakeholder views on the matter and prepares to send it to the Attorney General's Department for onward submission to Cabinet. The ministry has been engaging stakeholders across various sectors to fine-tune a proposed bill for consideration. Speaking with Joy Business, Technical Director at the ministry, Alhaji Suleimana Mahama, said their draft, if approved, could be the game changer in land administration in the country.
This land bill we are doing is clarifying the processes for land administration. In addition, what we are doing is to try to provide certainty about who owns what land. Normally, what keeps the processes very long and cumbersome is the fact that at each stage of the way you have to do so many investigations. For example, someone comes to you with a site plan. That is the beginning of the distance for a site. You have to check and be sure that the plan has been properly done. It takes some time to check that. You do an indenture. The indenture is supposed to have been done by a lawyer. The lawyers in the Lands Commission have to scrutinize these things to see whether it conforms to the provisions of the law. If it does not, it is sent back. You have to check and be sure that the particular land use conforms with the zoning regulations of the area. If it is not immediately available, then you have to go back to the department, the district assembly, which is providing that. So there is a lot of back and forth in that. So it makes it very, very difficult. And sometimes the lack of coordination and collaboration between the different departments that deal in that also creates these problems. So the law, for example, clarifies this. Now, before you bring any document for registration, make sure that it conforms with the survey regulations, which is LI 1444 of 1989. Once you bring it, your indenture is done based on the Conveyancing Act and signed actually by a lawyer, and all the provisions that need to be done need to be in the document are done. It makes it very clear, so you don't need to go back and forth.
Government has suspended several crucial social intervention programs, including the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty (LEAP), benefits for lifeline consumers of electricity, subsidies on petroleum products, and road arrears. This is because government made no allocation to the sector in the 2017 first quarter budget approved by Parliament last week. Parliament approved almost 11 billion cedis for the first quarter expenditure of 2017, but Joy News checks reveals there is no allocation to the social protection sectors. Member of the Finance Committee, Dr. Mark Esibe-Yeboah, tells Joy News those benefiting from the intervention will have to find alternate sources of income.
Because I can understand it when it's zero for utilities and petroleum. I can understand that one is zero. But social protection, so LEAP is zero here. Yeah. So if you expect to receive some LEAP payments in the first 3 months, the government is saying no. Okay, so all those social protections that we have for the vulnerable, they are being taken off.
And the issue about the lifeline for those on electricity, it means that they will no longer
it's gone. Yeah, so now regardless of your income, you pay the same for utilities.
Dr. Esibe is also questioning the amount allocated for goods and services, which is less than 1% of the money allocated for appropriation. According to him, people will be paid for doing nothing in the public sector.
Now, what it means is that we are going to pay workers for doing nothing, okay? Because the goods and services refers to the fuel that will run in vehicles, the paper that will buy for desktop, all the things that you need to work in the office. And what is going to goods and services here is less than 1%. Now, compensation of employees is taking 35%, and the interest and loan repayments is taking 29%. So, in essence, we are going to pay workers to sit idle and do nothing, no productivity. And what is even strange is that we are still borrowing. The 11 billion revenue coming is only 8.8. So we are even borrowing to meet these statutory payments.
But Finance Minister Setekpe says payment is only going into critical areas of the economy.
Approach, as the report indicated, is to meet only critical expenditure for the first quarter. Those critical expenditure obviously is compensation. You can't defer the payment of compensation to public sector employees, debt service commitments. So we are meeting this in full. When it comes to goods and services, capital expenditure, we are taking only critical expenditures to run the government for the quarter. For that first quarter as well, it is also important to note that revenues are just trickling in, and therefore you often borrow. And we have a principle of not borrowing to finance recurrent expenditure. So if you can defer recurrent expenditure into second, third, and fourth quarters when your revenues would have picked up, then that is what you do. So that explains the low level of some of the figures which will be, ramping up. We've also made provision for statutory fund payments, which are legislative, but even there, where it is paid quarterly in arrears, we do not pay in advance. We defer and wait for the quarter when it is deferred to raise the funds. This is one of the techniques we have actually been using to reduce the debt ratio. As I said, it was expected that the debt would have ballooned to about 99%. We all know that it tapered off between 68 and 72% over a 2-year period, and then has started, the stock itself has started to decline. And we expect that it to decline, as I explained, because of the fact that Ghana is going back to growth, and the denominator, which is your debt to GDP ratio, would increase.
Japanese car maker Nissan is taking a 34% stake in rival Mitsubishi Motors as the company struggles with financial challenges in the wake of recent scandal over fuel efficiency. The move hopes to make Nissan the largest shareholder and gives it enough of a stake to wield control under Japanese shareholding rules. However, in an interview with Joy Business, directors of both brands ruled out the immediate effect on the Ghanaian market is unlikely.
The deal is valued at 2.2 billion, which will hand Nissan just a third of the Mitsubishi Group. In an interview, Managing Director of Marketing, Nissan Sub-Saharan Africa, Javier Gubil, said the acquisition is a strategic alliance to forge a stronger brand.
And honest, what we call the granularity of the partnership. I think the partnership has been almost confirmed. The due diligence has been actually finished, and definitely Nissan is going to take 34% for the value of $2.2 billion I think so, in Mitsubishi. So that's a fact. The consequences of this decision hasn't been studied completely, whatever in terms of manufacturing, in terms of product, in terms of distribution. So, like I was involved in the old days when I was in Renault, I was working with Carlos Ghosn when the alliance Renault-Nissan has been together. When the decision has been made, all the consequences were not studied yet. And it took us many years to look at how we could optimize the synergies between the brands. The Mitsubishi brand is a very good brand. I think it's got a lot of potential. And Mr. Ghosn just said that the idea is not to take over, is not to merger, is to do what has been done very successfully, because what we call Renault-Nissan alliance has been elected as the best alliance in the world. And let's be clear, Renault, Nissan and Mitsubishi will become, if everything goes together, the #1 group by next year plus. So the strategy is actually very strong, very powerful, and is allow a lot of savings.
Meanwhile, the Managing Director for CFAO Ghana Limited, distributors of Mitsubishi vehicles in Ghana, Eduardo Rochette, confirms the merger was timely as the mother company grappled with financial challenges, but its effect on the Ghanaian market is unlikely in the immediate term.
I think in the short term it won't change anything, and in the long term it will reinforce the Mitsubishi brand, because they are going to develop the brands separately, and there will be probably more Mitsubishi products on the market. So I'm confident it will be good for Mitsubishi. At the moment, Mitsubishi faces some financial challenges, and Nissan find an interest in taking an important part of Mitsubishi share capital, because there are some complementary issues between them. Mitsubishi is strong in the Southeast Asia. So for Nissan, it's very important to take control of a car manufacturer which can help them expanding in Southeast Asia. At the same time, for Mitsubishi is good because it is going to give them financial support to help them recover and develop new models.
Okay.
It's on Business Live. We're taking a breather here. We'll be back.
Business Live today was brought to you by GCB Bank.
You're welcome back. Now, time now to go to the stock market, and Beta Atubiga has joined me here to tell us more about the stocks which opened today. Good evening, Beta.
Yeah, Emmanuel.
How did it go today?
Today's market was not a very impressive one, and I can say it just continued from what happened last week. Last week we didn't see much performance when it comes to the major indices on the stock markets. We saw them both drop by 0.07%, about that region, and the composite index actually closed at negative 12.00%. But as of today, we saw the levels dip further into the negative regions because all equities that moved were losers. But last week, the volumes of shares that traded on the markets increased comparing it to previous weeks. So that was a positive aspect that we had. It increased more than 600%, and the total value of shares that also traded last week went up by more than 76%, and that was quite encouraging. But the indices that measures the average performance of the entire market and the financial stock market is what went down. And we saw them close at negative 13.81% for the financial stock index and a negative 12% for the composite index.
So which
but when you come today, Today, last week, it was just 2 equities that did well. Before I come, last week it was only CAL and then EGH. CAL went up by 4 pesos to close at 84 pesos per share. EGH went up by a peso, and then we saw CAL actually lose 2 pesos of its 4 peso gain last week. So today, as a close of today's trade, CAL is trading at 82 pesos per share after trading just 200 shares on the stock market. We also had UT Bank losing further. Last week it lost a peso, and today it has lost a peso again after trading the highest volumes of shares on the exchange. UT Bank traded over 900 shares today, and the price, it was traded at a discount that's below the market price. That is 3 pesos per share. So UT Bank is currently going for 3 pesos per unit share, previously trading at 4 pesos per share as a close of last week. And we also had SIC losing a peso today on its previous share price, and SIC is going for 14 pesos per share, previously trading at 15 pesos per share. So we had an all-losers market, and the major indices dropped to negative 12.15% for the composite index, and then the financial stock index closed at negative 14.04%.
Do you expect a trend to continue through the week?
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised if the trend continues this week as well. But one thing that we are advocating is that UT Bank has lost so much. Though the company has not actually released its financials for some time now, and investors are not aware of what is happening in the company, but it is speculated, and we all know that the company in question has some issues. If you invest in UT Bank now at 3 pesos and it inches up to even 4 or 5 pesos and you sell off, you would have made some gains in the shortest possible time.
Thank you very much, Bertha,
You're welcome.
for that update. Bertha Atubiga is always here on Mondays and Fridays to give us updates of the stock markets. Now, in interview of the day today, the country director of Isoko Ghana, a social enterprise focused on agric information, is telling us how relevant agriculture is, especially using the PPP approach to develop the sector.
Interview of the day is brought to you by
EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
How important are social enterprises like yours, Isoko, to Ghana's economy?
Yeah, so social enterprises by design are supposed to support the bottom of the pyramid people in every country. And what is interesting in social enterprise that they seek to run businesses that are sustainable, profitable, but they're not necessarily driven by profit motives. Social enterprise actually nature knowledge-based economy in every part of the world. If you go to countries where there's very thriving social enterprise industry, the economy is based on knowledge and not just based on raw material supplies. That's what we have been doing over the years. So all that we have been doing along is just to produce, sell the crops, and then that is it. When you have a very vibrant social enterprise in your country, I mean, the people are able to add value through knowledge and then be able to create much more other services and products that goes to support the economy.
So what are some of the policies that government can put in place to support social enterprise development in Ghana?
Yes, I'll talk about the fact that there got to be a PPP, which is just a simple public-private partnerships. How do the government institutions, the various arms of government, actually partner with the social enterprise to support them to grow? I mean, most of the social enterprise we have in the country haven't been able to scale. Haven't been able to scale, but they just have only a few customers, probably 1,500 people that they work with. How do the government support these guys to be able to reach out to more people and then be able to sell the service to these farmers and or whatever the people may be? That's where the focus must be. How do you partner the social enterprises, support them with technical expertise? Could be financial support. It could be the regulatory framework that allows these businesses to actually thrive and grow and nurture their businesses. Is what is required.